So anyone who's been watching any of the videos I've been doing about my Ducati Brio, you would have seen that I got close to starting it up. I mixed the two-stroke fuel together, everything like that, ready to go, and went to put it in the bike. It went through the valve, absolutely fine. The fuel tap, a little bit of leakage, but it stopped, so that obviously that it's expanded and everything okay. However, although it went through the filter perfectly, it went straight through the Dellorto and pissed straight out the bottom of the fuel reservoir. So it made me realise actually I hadn't done a rebuild on the carb. I think excitement got the better of me, and I either completely forgot, I can't even remember what went through my head. I would have assumed it would have been a thing to do. So what I did, I panicked a little bit and I thought, how on earth am I going to get a rebuild kit for a 1965 Ducati scooter that they made for 2 years? But thankfully, because this in fact is a relatively common carburettor, I believe, I've managed to get a rebuild kit from Ohio, of all places. So I actually went online and I managed to find a rebuild kit in the States and had that shipped in. So I thought I'd do a quick rebuild, because it really isn't going to take that long, and find out really whether this is a decent enough rebuild kit and whether we get no leakage afterwards. So we've got all the bits and pieces. We've got the main float, we've got the reservoir. That's the right shape. Whether it's the right size or not, I don't know. Looks like it could be. You know, and then we'll work our way through the bits and see which bits need to be done. Well, we'll do them all, which bits are completely knackered, and rebuild the car. So I'm literally going to start disassembling things. So we've got the main clamp that can stay in, and there's no gaskets or anything like that at all. That doesn't prevent us taking apart the carb in any other way. So we'll go straight to the float bowl, and we'll take off the gate as well. Let's just go for the gate first. So it should be quite easy. So I took this off the bike the other day, took the cable back out from in here, which feeds through this hole. There's a spring in here, so we try and not let it ping out. There we go. So there's one of our gaskets. It's a slightly different shape from that one that's there. So we'll have a quick look at that later on. Obviously it's enough, others I'm guessing they wouldn't make it. So there's one piece. And then we've got, let's go, here's the gate. Let's go there. Gate's out. Yeah, they just need a real clean up. It's absolutely filthy inside. I can't believe I didn't do this. So we'll go for the main screw as well. So because I know where this screw was already, I'm not worried about taking it all out and whatnot and losing its setting. It wasn't really set anyway. But that does look like the right one. Lovely. Then we'll go with the float bowl. Different screws, I'm not sure they're original screws. Take off the float bowl. See, this is where it was leaking from around that one there. It was absolutely peeing out. So we'll clean that in a second. Keep the screws in with things at the moment. We've got the float, which again looks like the right size, which is great. We've got the pin, which should come up quite nice and easy, which it does. Lovely. Got the pin. Again, we've got a replacement pin, which is nice as well. So let's put that there. We've got the jet there as well. And again, see, that looks like a different jet to me. So obviously they are different. So I might have to rethink that one, whether I can reuse that jet or not, because that looks like it's going to let through an awful lot more fuel than that. So we'll have a look at that in a moment. We've got the main jet here. Oops. And as you can see in there, but it is filthy in there. So I'm going to give that a quick blast out in a second, and then we'll try and work out where all these other gaskets and seals go. So one will obviously go there, and one will go there. Look at the state of that. So we'll gradually work our way back. Now this, I had a look at this the other day, and it was really brittle. Let's make sure that's the right size first before I break that one. Yes. Okay. She's been on there a long time. There's no way this thing would have started. So there's the old filter, look at that. So I would have had this ultrasonically cleaned if I'd thought about it, but instead I'm going to give it a good old blast out with carb cleaner. We've got a spring in there as well, so I'm going to need to get to that, which I'm guessing is through this coarse filter here, which I think just pulls out from what I remember. Pushed in there quite hard. It's a problem when somebody else has been banging around with it. Just get some pliers on that. You know what I mean? I managed to get the starting to twist out, so without pliers. It's really tight in there. There we go. Right. Smashing. Okay, so we've got the filter out, which I'll have a look at a little bit later on. So what we're left with is there's a rubber seal that goes around here. Inside here, it's like a C seal, which will be this one. So that's fine. We've got a spring for the choke. So although that spring is absolutely fine, I have got a new one. So I'm going to replace it. It makes sense to do, wouldn't it? So I'm going to do that. Hopefully that should all go in relatively easily, but obviously there's a fair amount of tension behind that. So I'm going to strip it down first. And then, you know what, I am going to take that clamp out just because I want to get the whole thing a good clean. So let's take it out. Although you've got to be reasonably careful with these things, so I might not for the moment actually. That didn't feel like it wanted to come out. So I'm going to leave that on, for the moment. Backtracking. I'll leave it reasonably loose, I'll give it a bit of a tighten up. So, I need to fish some things out, I need to get that seal out, I need to get that off, get the choke off, clean behind it, and everything else looks alright, to be honest, there's no damage. Should be good. So, get some carb cleaner. Get my mask because it's blooming hot in here today and this is going to stink. Okay, so I'll do these other bits first actually. Right. Okay, so that's cleaned up quite well actually. There was some depositing on the back here, but I'm not too frantic about that. There was some here, some pitting down through here, some carbon deposits, and they've come up really nicely as well. So all I want to do now is give it a bit of dry off, although it's going to evaporate within seconds in here anyway. So they're not. I'd rather it was dried off than evaporating into my lungs. And we'll take that C seal out. Just checking the internals there. It's fine. Okay, start again. Okay, so now I've got that off, what I'm going to do is gradually start building it back up again. I should be wearing gloves really, but I forgot. So, get a small screwdriver just to pry out that seal. Because he's going to be really in there. There's an old seal that. You can't really see that, can you? It's like, it's not even rubber. It's like some old felt seal. Here we go. So he's, yeah, this thing would have just never have run particularly well. As you can see, it's like, I'm not sure it is even rubber. It might be rubber, but it's really degraded. So, get rid of that. That's old. So, there's a bit of debris in there, so we'll get that quick clean up. We don't want those little bits going into the jets. Okay, so first one down. Let's get this rubber one in there. This is seal in there. There's no up or down. There's no profile to it. There is a slight profile to it. So I don't know whether it's impossible to see really, but it's like a flat side and a more rounded side. It's obviously part of the manufacturing, but I'm going to put it into the flat side is showing, so it should be a tighter seal. That's my thinking anyway. Just going to move him around a little bit, like that. Okay, so that's one seal in. Then we need to get the choke. So the choke, there's a bit of a faff to get out, but actually beautifully designed so it can be slotted in like that. In first, there we go, like that, and then that will swivel on there. but I've got to try and get the new spring on. So this is going to be interesting. I would imagine it's going to be like that. So let's get the screw through it. I'm going to put it on first, like that, and then bring the tail of the spring round. So we'll get that on first. Oops, a bit fiddly. Right, so we've got that through. So what I've got to do is to get that tail over to the other side. So if I lift it up like that, push him through. Easy said than done this, easy said than done. Too much tension on the screw, I think, so right. Take that out. Here we go. So he's on, tighten the screw down, like that. That should slide, look at that. Lovely. Okay, so we've got that bit on. Bit fiddly, but it's a tiny carburetor, so it's not really surprising. So that's fine. I'm gonna give that a bit of a clean up before I put that back on, but that's all that's got to go back onto that now. So I want to have a look at the, let's put back into the main filter first. So that's this one, because this was quite straightforward. So this is literally just a pressed plastic part with a filter. So it must be just a main filter itself, and obviously it does keep crap out because that's covered in stuff. This is all nice and clean. It's a bit pitted, but it should be okay. So let's pop him in. He sits quite nicely in there. We'll get the that piece on first. Let's give them a bit of a clean as well. So he'll go on here, and then we'll get the, where's that gone? Now, as you can tell, hex cap is definitely not the original, but that's what I have, unfortunately. So that is old. Now, I have a funny feeling that's not going to fit on there, so that seal's not going to fit. I do have some other felt washers, but he's going to have to do for the time being. I certainly didn't notice any leaking out of this one either, to be honest. So we'll use that one for the moment, but I will replace that. So he's going to go on there. There we go. He's nice on there. First bit on. Okay, so next bit will be, let's do the float chamber, because this is probably the most important, and this is the bit that was actually leaking. So I'm going to take out the 2 screws. I'm going to take out this old seal. I'll probably do it with a pin, in fact, actually, rather than a screwdriver. Screwdriver's a bit hefty. There's the old screw. Hopefully they're all right. They are. Okay, let's get a little blade on that one. Bear with me. Here we go. So it'll come out nice and easily. So before, and I've been caught out of this before, although this is not going to run as it is with this in it, I've learned always to be reasonably careful when you're taking these things out, just because if the one you've been given to replace it with isn't right, really you need to have something. So you could always do something with this, maybe seal it, or I don't know, if you're looking at vintage stuff that you can't get hold of. But this one looks perfect. So that is great. So I'm gonna give that a bit of a clean up as well. Resist the urge to use brass, well, any metal brushes on these things. They really scratch badly. Okay, so give them a clean up. Do wear gloves when you're doing it. I've got very thin gloves on, obviously. Let's just double check everything around the seal is fine. And it is. You see where it's probably leaking at the bottom there. There's more residue there than anywhere else. A little bit more of a clean actually. There we go. Just a big fat deposit, that's fine. Gross. So there we go. So, put the new seal on. So, put him with the old. The thing I've learned is to put the old stuff out the way so that you don't end up putting old stuff back on accidentally. Lovely. So he fits in there really nicely. So there's a bit of tension there. So that's fine. So it might pop out a little bit, but that's fine for the moment. So he's ready. Obviously before he goes on, we've got the main screw to go in. So let's just double check these. So we've got, again, the old one and the new one. It's impossible to tell really. They do look different, but I imagine the jets are the same cells. So 68. This one doesn't say what it is, weirdly. It might be a cheap jet, but either way. So old, bang him in there. Give him a quick nip up. Not with that one. Then we've got, what have we got? Now, we've got to look at this old jet. So first we've got the float bowl, old float bowl, new float bowl, old pin, new pin. Got a couple of seals here, not quite sure where they go at the moment, maybe for another car. Float bowl. So it's these, it's this one. I'm not sure about this. I mean, that is significantly different. I'm wondering whether it's the shape of the float bowl. No, they are identical, which means the jets are going to sit down differently. So I think we're going to have to use this old jet, I'm pretty sure these are called jets, forgive me if they're not, because I think that is going to cause more problems than solve. So it's so significantly different, as you can see. So what I might do is, in fact, that's fine, I can take a measurement from that one. So I'll give that a bit of a clean up first. Great way of cleaning your workbench. Crikey. Right. And the tip doesn't look particularly worn. So it's not like, there is somewhere, but I'd really rather not be reusing that, but not great at all. So I will measure that and I will order a new one of those as well. Okay, but for the time being, for the sake of the video, I'm just going to pop it back in. Okay, so it just slots in there nice and easily. Okay, it comes over the top of here. The jet pulls in that little hole. Okay, and then the pin goes through. On the other one, there was like a serrated end. No, there isn't this one. This one just pops straight through. Like that. There we go. So, that is the float bowl rebuilt. Okay, this can be popped back on. Just let me get that bit clean out still. Problem is with two strokes, they do get dirty. So you can go back on. So the seal's in there nice and easy. Yep, nice and properly. Put them over the top. Put two screws, give it a clean. I mean, this should actually stop the float, the actual leak, which is the reason I took it apart in the first place. So that should be fixed. But actually, it will run an awful lot better now I've done the rebuild anyway. It's well seated all the way around. Yeah, you try to over tighten these things because they tend to deform. Okay, so that's that. I have no idea where these seals go. I would imagine they are for another carb. The same as that jet being potentially for another carb. So I didn't put the screw in, did I? Or was that here? Idiot. There's the jack. Going balmy now, that's what happens when it's too hot. No, so this is the, go mad then. Right, give them a bit of clean. This is just the idle screw, isn't it? Goes on. And in he goes. So he'll go all the way in. Being a thumb screw, you should be able to get it all the way in, I think, by hand. So that's all the way in. And then it's out 1.5 turns. So half, 1, half. So he's out. And then we need to put the, I don't know what you'd call it, but either way, this part in. I'm not a carburetor expert, I'm just somebody doing it. So this is the cable. This is the cable basically slots in through here, hooks onto that, and it's that pulls against the spring and opens up and controls actually the throttle going in, the fuel air mixture going in. there we have it. So that will go in, that slot on here, and that will push against the spring when it's pulled up. You can see here, so that will pull against and it opens up. It's all a bit, it's not like modern standards of build. You can feel it's a bit loose against there, but anyway, it will be fine for a 1965 scooter. I'm going to leave the spring on, but I'm taking the seal off, which came off earlier anyway, so I think it will come off nice and easily. It does. I mean, that is definitely beyond saving. Give these a bit of a clean. Throttle cable comes through here, comes through, and then hooks onto that. There you go. It's interesting though, this is what we were looking at earlier. This is where you got to be careful of these things. So this seal here goes over that cover there, look. So it covers that entry there. And that entry there, I don't know what it's for, but there's actually a hole there. So there was obviously something in there that isn't there anymore. Almost like a choke, because it's almost impossible to show you on this, I think. But maybe that's up to the light. Around here, you can just about see there's like it's like a star shape where there's been a pin with a star-shaped end to it pushed in there, which goes straight through out the other side here, and then that creates almost like a fulcrum for something to come up there. It's almost like a lever there, so it's almost like a choke of some kind. I can't quite work that one out. So that's an interesting one, but the problem is now, because this seal doesn't cover that, we're now going to have him coming up and blasting out the side of that hole. So, not an easy thing to sort out. And I don't want to be using that old gasket. So what I'm going to do is you're lucky to have spares. So this one doesn't have it, but it's the right size. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use that to basically fill that gap for the time being and see if that makes any difference. That should help it, I think. If it does, I'll pull it out, I'll cut it at the right length, and then we'll put it in there permanently. I'd imagine it's some kind of, genuinely, I can't even think straight this morning, so not sure what that is. So I'll put that pin in there for the time being. That will remind me that there is a hole there that needs to be basically sorted. But otherwise, he can go back on. So, like that. So the spring sits on top of the round bit in there, like that, and this pushes down on top. Except you do the right way around, of course. So I put the spring on top, that. I don't think it's going to cause too much of a problem, that. Okay, so that is now sprung loaded, which is lovely. So everything's in there, they're all back together again. Everything's working, it's all cleaned. That's pretty much it. The last thing to do is to get this thing in there. It's in quite bad shape, but good old blast and put my mask on for this one. See what I do somewhere else anyway. That's cold. Whew. The upside of that being cold, it should fit in there quite easily. Obviously nothing's easy with this thing, so let's bung him in. I'm going to brush off first actually. Like that. And what I'll do, I will little hammer and we'll tap that down. I'm not going to do it now, I'll get that in a bit later, but there we go. So that is a 1965 Dellorto SHA 14.12. So that's as best as I can really do really with the kits that we get. Working choke, replace the jet. Issue with this one, so I'm going to replace the right length for that. All back together again. Ready to go back onto the Brio. I hope that was entertaining of some description. I'm sure it wasn't very useful, but there we go. So next time you see this, it will be going on the bike or on the bike, or even running on the bike. But that's a bit optimistic. Thanks.